Your job isn't to dream, it's to deliver, Stephanie. That's what Rick hissed at me across the table as he clicked his pen like a goddamn metronome of male fragility. It was a Tuesday, 9:43 a.m. I remember, because I spent the rest of that meeting fantasizing about putting that big pen where the sun don't shine. Anyway, picture this. Beige carpet, burnt coffee, and a conference room so cold it could preserve a corpse. Welcome to Denslow and Carr, consulting firm built on buzzwords, bloodless PowerPoints, and men like Rick, who think emotional intelligence is a threat to capitalism. I was a project manager, reliable, quiet, the kind of woman who triple-checks spreadsheets and brings her own dry erase markers to meetings, the kind of woman they forget to invite to the happy hours and the layoffs. Rick called me Shark Tank Barbie because I mentioned I was testing a side hustle in sustainable packaging. You'd think I announced I was starting a cult in the break room. He laughed so hard he snorted La Croix up his nose. I cleaned the table while he emailed my pitch deck to the team under the subject line, "A Lesson in Delusion." It was humiliating, not rage-inducing, not yet, just gutting, like watching your dreams get stapled to a dartboard at a frat house. But I played the part, nodded at the right jokes, smiled through the performance reviews where they told me to lean out of extracurriculars and focus on synergy. Meanwhile, every night after dinner, I turned our guest bedroom into a logistics war room, samples, invoices, biodegradable tape, caffeine pills lined up like little soldiers. My startup, Green Layer, was just me, a second-hand printer, and a spreadsheet full of hope. I wasn't trying to quit. I was just trying to matter. And since you're already here, real quick, 97% of you listen to these stories without hitting subscribe. Go on, tap that follow button and slap a like if you're enjoying this. It means the world to the team who stays up editing these while eating cold pizza and Googling how to politely tell your boss to eat dirt. We notice every click, and it really helps keep these stories coming. Back at the office, the culture was all work hard, pretend harder. Passive-aggressive compliments flowed like boxed wine at a corporate retreat. Rick once told me I was too meticulous to lead and followed it up with a wink. HR called it constructive feedback. I called it psychological exfoliation with sandpaper. But what do you do when your paycheck pays the insurance that covers your dad's medication? You wear the mask. You perfect the art of agreeable silence. When they start assigning the interns to your accounts, because Rick wants to see how they swim, you smile like it doesn't sting. You smile like your bones aren't turning into glass under the weight of one more goddamn pivot chart. The thing is, I didn't want to be a CEO. Not at first. I just wanted to ship compostable bubble mailers that didn't smell like factory runoff. I wanted to see if maybe, just maybe, I could build something clean in a world that rewards waste. Something that felt like mine. But the walls were closing in. Rick was sniffing around. HR started dropping compliance check-ins into my calendar like confetti. And still, I stayed, like an idiot. Because that's what loyal employees do, right? We stay. We swallow it down. Until we don't. It was supposed to be a 5-minute status update on Q2 deliverables, just a quick run-through of project timelines, before Rick could scurry off to his networking lunch with the COO, where he'd order a $27 salad and pretend to understand blockchain. But somehow, it morphed into a public evisceration. All because Brandon, fresh out of business school, and about as subtle as a brass knuckle, asked me if I was still doing that little cardboard thing on the side. Rick's ears perked up like a bloodhound catching wind of a juicy scent, spun in his Herman Miller chair, all mock surprise and weaponized curiosity. Wait, what's this about Stephanie being an entrepreneur? You moonlighting as the CEO of Bubble Wrap now? The room chuckled, not big laughs, just the kind that sting more. The polite, cover-your-ass laughs of people who know better than to side with a target. I managed a tight smile. It's just a small eco-packaging startup, nights and weekends. Nothing that affects my work here. That should have been the end of it. But Rick had tasted blood. Eco-packaging? He howled, scrolling through his phone like he was looking for a punchline. Guys, you gotta see this. Steph's out here trying to save the whales with cornstarch and Etsy vibes. And then he did it. Forwarded my pitch deck, my deck that I'd used for grant application, to the entire team. Subject line, startup chic face with tears of joy, there it was. My margins, supplier list, projected scaling goals, all of it splayed out like roadkill in everyone's inbox. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there, heart ricocheting against my ribs, face hot enough to melt plastic. My hands went clammy, and the room got loud with fake laughter and clacking keyboards. I couldn't breathe right, but I didn't flinch. Just nodded, stared at the screen like I was reading something important, and waited for it to end. That night, closed my laptop and sat in the dark for an hour. Just sat. I wasn't even mad, not really, more hollow than anything. Like I'd just learned the universe was run by teenage boys in bad suits. But as the silence stretched on, a tiny ember started burning in my gut. Embarrassment is a funny thing. At first, it eats you from the inside, turns you soft. But if you sit with it long enough, if you really listen to what it's telling you, it hardens, sharpens, comes something else. I started thinking about that deck. The one Rick mocked. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't garbage either. I'd worked on it for months. Balanced projections, refined the sourcing pipeline, ran packaging durability tests in my damn kitchen. Hell, my supplier in Minnesota even texted me first when he landed a patent on heat-sealed hemp fiber. And suddenly, I was asking myself questions I'd shoved into the basement of my mind. Why was I still here? Why did I spend 60 hours a week earning praise for keeping Rick's messes tidy when I could be building something of my own, something that didn't require a male interpreter to be taken seriously? The shame didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling me. Something shifted. I could feel it, like a misaligned bone clicking back into place. The next morning, I updated the homepage on Green Layer's site, changed the tagline from small steps toward better packaging to built for the next era of shipping. It wasn't much, but it felt like armor. I didn't know it yet, but that flicker of resolve, it was the start of a wildfire. It started with a calendar invite, HR Sync 15 min, no subject line, no context. Just a cold little block of doom wedged between my 1-1 with Rick and a cross-departmental budget review that could have been an email. The HR rep, Lissa, 30-something with unnaturally cheerful energy and nails like daggered skittles, opened with a smile so tight it could split granite. So, just wanted to chat about a few things that floated across our radar. I knew the script. I'd seen this play before. They butter you up, tell you how valued you are, then slide a legal noose across the table while humming Kumbaya. She pulled up a document labeled External Engagement Compliance Policy Addendum. Translation, non-compete, targeted, custom fit, with language so vague it could ban me from selling lemonade at a garage sale. You understand this is to protect the integrity of the firm's intellectual ecosystem, Alyssa chirped, flipping pages. Given your extracurricular activities, we want to ensure there's no conflict of interest moving forward. I stared at her. Not defiant, just blank. Like my brain had unplugged from my body to protect me from whiplash. She tapped a highlighted clause with her pink talon. We'd need this signed by end of week. No rush, though. By the time I returned to my desk, Rick had already revoked my WFH approval. The weekly arrangement I'd negotiated 6 months ago to care for my dad after his hip surgery, gone, disappeared from the system like it never existed. The cherry on top, my quarterly performance bonus, was slashed. No explanation, just a clipped email from payroll that read, adjustment in tier metrics due to engagement level. Engagement level, like I was a goddamn Instagram post. Then came the whispers. Steph's not really dialed in these days. She's kind of split focus, you know? Heard she's angling for a graceful exit. Graceful exit. Cute. I couldn't even afford a rude exit. I was the sole breadwinner. My dad's physical therapy wasn't covered by his Medicare plan. My Cobra premium would have choked a lawyer. That night, I opened the back-end dashboard of Green Layer and hovered over the pause storefront button. My cursor trembled like it knew something I didn't. I clicked into the inventory settings, canceled 2 upcoming supplier orders, shut down paid ads. I told myself it was temporary, just until things cooled off, until I could breathe again. But the truth was uglier. I was scared. Terrified, actually. Of being fired, losing everything, of becoming one of those cautionary LinkedIn posts that starts with after 17 loyal years. I never thought it would end like this. I spent the rest of the week in a haze. Pretending. Smiling. Nodding during meetings where men who couldn't format a cell in Excel explained strategic vision to me like I hadn't been managing timelines since they were still microwaving ramen in college. Rick, of course, acted like nothing had happened, except now he always smirked when passing my desk, like a cat who already knows where the mouse trap is. He'd clap me on the shoulder and say things like, "We're watching, Steph. Don't burn out." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because if I did, I was going to say something that'd get me walked out with a box and a security escort, so I kept my head down. killed the part of me that had once dared to dream big. Packed green layer into a mental box marked too risky. Somewhere under all that fear, something kept twitching. A thread I hadn't cut. A stubborn pulse that whispered, "This isn't over." I told the team I had a family dentist emergency and ducked out of work in a blazer and jeans like a corporate fugitive. Rode the red line with a tote full of samples and pit sweat soaking through my backup deodorant. The Women in Tech conference was already humming when I got there. Lattes, badge lanyards, women in blazers moving like they actually wanted to be there. It felt wrong at first, like I'd crashed a party for people who had time to dream. Founders with angel investors and seed rounds and Slack channels named after plants. I was just a mid-level PM playing CEO in her pajamas, but I stayed. During the speed networking session, basically capitalist speed dating, I got paired with a woman named Dara. Gold hoops, firm handshake, no nonsense. Her name badge read, VP Procurement ClearMart. My heart stuttered, ClearMart, our firm's biggest client. The cash cow Rick would literally punch a nun to keep happy. She glanced at my badge. Tell me what you do. Go, I blinked. Okay, I run a startup called Green Layer. We make compostable shipping alternatives, mailer sleeves, corrugated wraps, box linings, made from renewable pulp and mushroom fiber, designed to reduce secondary packaging waste without compromising product safety. Fully recyclable, low carbon, cost neutral at scale. I bootstrap at night while managing full-time ops at a consultancy that, well, doesn't believe in any of that. She smiled, slow and shark-like. That's 2 minutes and one hell of a pitch. I laughed too loud and probably too long. She asked for card. I didn't have one. I scribbled my info on a recycled notepad sheet that had a faint coffee stain in the corner. Real CEO vibes. I thought nothing of it. Just another conversation in a sea of handshakes and hopeful LinkedIn requests. But 5 days later, I got the email. Short, precise. From Dara Choi at ClearMart Group.com. Subject, packaging samples, no emojis, no preamble. Just, would you be willing to send a sample kit of your full line to our procurement office? Discreetly, please. I stared at the screen like it was written in Braille. Read it again and again. The air in the room changed. That weekend, I stayed up until 3 a.m. building the perfect kit. I laid out inserts, hand-wrapped the demo items, wrote a letter so polished it could have gotten me into Yale. I included stats, break test data, carbon offset comparisons, even added a biodegradable sticker with a QR code to our tiny landing page. I dropped the box at FedEx. I couldn't feel my legs. Not from nerves, from something else, like belief. For the first time since Rick's little public flogging, I felt seen, not as a liability, not as a side hustler, not as a burden to be dealt with in HR's pastel dungeon of shame. As a founder. A few days later, Dara replied again, kit received, impressive polish for bootstrap. I'll be in touch. Just that. It lit something up in me I'd buried under compliance forms and passive-aggressive Slack messages. Maybe I wasn't delusional. Maybe I wasn't naive. Maybe my little thing had teeth. The first time I saw the name Green Layer packaging LLC in black serif, font on a state-registered certificate, I cried in the FedEx parking lot. Not full sobs, just one of those silent, shoulder-trembling weeps that sneaks up on you when your whole nervous system finally exhales. It felt final, dangerous, real. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Tamaz, a small batch manufacturer who ran a family-owned plant in Indiana that smelled like pine dust and old ambition. He'd seen my packaging samples, loved my carbon offset model, and offered me a limited fulfillment contract on the spot. It's small, he said, handing over the papers. It's yours, no middlemen. Just build it right. I signed without blinking, somewhere between terrified and electric. That night, I updated the Green Layer website with our new legal name, added Tamaz's plant to our backend, uploaded fresh headshots, fixed the mobile layout, and hit publish on our first legit product catalog. It was official. I didn't tell anyone at the firm. I didn't owe them that. But I forgot LinkedIn loves to tattle. Monday morning, it's 17 a.m. I walked into the office and could feel the temperature shift. It wasn't the AC, it was the whispers, the tight little smirks. Rick was pacing near the espresso machine like a televangelist who just found a fresh sin to exploit. By 9:03 a.m., I was called into the glass box. He didn't even sit. Just stood there, hands on hips, jaw locked like he was suppressing a monologue that involved the words loyalty and audacity. So, started tapping his phone like a judge with a gavel. You incorporated? I nodded. Calm. Yes, he smirked like I'd confirmed a conspiracy theory. Great. Then you won't mind that I've reassigned your accounts. We need focus, not passion projects. My heart dropped. Atlas Tech, our biggest legacy client, gone. Just like that. Reassigned to Chad with a surfboard avatar who once spelled procurement with 2 O's in a pitch deck. I didn't cry this time. Didn't flinch. I just sat there, absorbing the power trip like Kevlar. Rick didn't demote me because I was a risk. He did it because I scared him. Because I had something that didn't run through him. And in Rick's world, independence was the ultimate betrayal. I walked out of the meeting and straight into the stairwell. No cameras there, just old drywall and dusty vents. I leaned against the railing and opened my email app. Dara Choi at ClearMart Group Com subject. Proposal vendor realignment option body. Dara, given our recent product developments and supply partnerships, I'd like to formally propose a transition option for ClearMart's secondary packaging needs. Green Layer is now equipped to handle fulfillment at scale and offers significantly reduced overhead versus traditional consulting markup. I'm attaching a detailed side-by-side breakdown of cost savings, carbon impact, and projected efficiency improvements. No pressure, just transparency. Warmly, Stephanie W., founder, Green Layer. I stared at the send button for a full minute. My hands shook. My lungs weren't working right. But somewhere underneath, the fear was something wild. Not pride, not ego. Just this strange, steady hum of rightness. I hit send. It didn't feel like a rebellion. It felt like a birth. I walked back to my desk lighter. Rick had taken my accounts, but he hadn't taken my engine. He didn't even know the ignition had already turned. And for the first time since this whole circus started, I realized something bone deep and unshakable. This wasn't my side hustle anymore. This was the main thing. I lost Slack access mid-sentence. I was typing a project update when the window froze, then booted me to a login screen like I'd been excommunicated from the digital priesthood. And minutes later, a system admin emailed me some vague IT nonsense. Permissions were restructured to reflect current workflow prioritization. Translation. Rick was tightening the screws. My PTO request for my dad's surgical consult, submitted 3 weeks earlier, now showed as under extended review. When I followed up, HR told me Rick had flagged it for timing concerns. I stared at the message so long I could see the pixels humming. Came the hallway comment. Rick, pausing beside my desk, fake casual like a sitcom villain. Hey, Steph, just wanted you to know leadership's keeping an eye on bandwidth alignment. I'd hate to see you get overwhelmed. Could read as disengagement. Disengagement, probation's evil twin. Unofficial, undocumented. Impossible to defend against, but real as hell. The walls were closing in and I had no illusions left. Rick knew something. Not everything, but enough. Maybe a whisper from Chad. Maybe he'd seen the fulfillment facility address on LinkedIn. Either way, he was coming for blood. But while Rick played corporate Gestapo, something else was quietly brewing across the street. ClearMart started asking for data. Lots of it. Packaging specs, material sourcing breakdowns, fulfillment timelines, emission offset reports. They didn't CC Rick's team. They didn't even route it through standard vendor channels. Everything came direct to my Green Layer inbox. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw the pattern, same questions phrased slightly differently each week, like they were cross-referencing responses. Secret audits, and I wasn't dumb enough to run that solo. I called 2 people I hadn't seen in years. Maya, my college roommate turned UI designer for a startup in Chicago. And Elise, logistics wizard, single mom, the only person I knew who once got a drone-based shipping prototype through beta without losing her mind or her weekends. I didn't pitch them some dream or ask them to believe in the vision. I just said, I need 2 people I trust to help me keep this thing alive while the wolves circle. They both said yes, without even asking about pay. Maya set up a streamlined dashboard and rebuilt the customer interface from the ground up. These helped renegotiate our warehouse's dropship schedule to tighten our delivery window by 4 days. They worked nights and weekends like it was war. And in a way, it was. Because every time I opened my work laptop, I had to pretend nothing had changed. Smile in meetings, nod at Rick's passive-aggressive questions. Act surprised when he rerouted my Teams files just in case. I was a ghost in my own department, a liability no one could prove, everyone whispered about. And yet, every night I watched Green Layer's backend light up. Sample requests doubled. We got inquiries from 2 subscription box services and one very large apparel brand that I suspected was ClearMart testing me under an alias. It was working. It was actually working. But the tension wrapped itself around my spine like piano wire. One wrong email, one misplaced file, one bad Slack joke forwarded to the wrong person. Did it all come crashing down? Some days I felt like a queen. Other days like a fugitive in my own skin. And always, always was the ticking clock. The feeling that a decision was coming. That ClearMart was building towards something. I didn't know if it would explode in my face or detonate Rick's kingdom. But I knew this much. There wouldn't be a warning. It started as a whisper in the elevator. One of the junior analysts mentioned hearing something about ClearMart reevaluating vendor relationships. He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. The words hung there like smoke from a slow-burning fire. By the time I reached my floor, the air had changed. Again, the news spread fast. ClearMart was reviewing every active contract tied to fulfillment, logistics, and sustainability alignment. That covered Rick's entire department, every one of my old accounts. People started getting twitchy. Half the project managers suddenly found excuses to swing by my desk, asking dumb questions with darting eyes. The interns stopped saying good morning. I walked into the kitchen and caught 2 managers talking in low tones. Rick's freaking out. He thinks she flagged something to ClearMart directly. She doesn't have that kind of power. Then why is procurement ghosting his team? The next morning, my badge didn't work at the West Wing door. My name was missing from the department dashboard. My inbox had been scrubbed from 3 team threads. No explanation, just corporate vanishing ink. At 3:47 p.m., I got a calendar invite, executive debrief urgent. Location, boardroom 4A, no attendees listed, just me. When I walked in, Rick was already seated, tie off, sleeves rolled, face set like he was preparing for a televised trial. Eagle was there too. Company counsel, gray suit, yellow pad, dead eyes. Rick smiled without warmth. Stephanie, thanks for coming. We're hoping you can help us clear up a few things before this ClearMart nonsense gets any further out of hand. He gestured to a printout on the table, a screenshot of a line of code. My code. Packaging analytics tied to a supply chain optimization I developed months ago for Green Layer. Rick leaned forward. This function here. This was drafted on a work laptop. Timestamped at 7:43 p.m. That's technically within our operating hours, given your adjusted flex time, which means it falls under our intellectual property agreement. He said it like a man who'd rehearsed this moment in the mirror, probably while holding a glass of scotch and grinning at his own reflection. Legal cleared his throat. If proprietary systems were leveraged in the development of any external business, maybe looking at a violation. A serious one. I didn't flinch, because I'd been preparing for this moment since the first time Rick threatened my bandwidth. I reached into my folder, pulled out a printed timeline, every Green Layer development stage, every vendor contact, every test batch, all with dates, private system names, and version logs. I laid down printed Slack timestamps of Rick refusing me access to collaborative platforms, proof that I'd been locked out of work systems during key development months. Then I dropped the hammer. An affidavit from Tamaz, my manufacturer, timestamped with the first test prototype and shipment record before Rick had even started assigning interns to my deliverables. This, I said, keeping my voice level, was built outside your walls on my own time, using my own systems. The only reason any of it exists is because you made it clear I'd never be promoted no matter how much I delivered. Rick's jaw twitched. Legal sat back. Silent, I stood, smoothed my blazer, looked Rick dead in the eye. You know what's funny, I said. You always told me I wasn't leadership material, that I was too soft, too slow, too cautious. But I've spent the last year documenting everything, Rick, because the only thing softer than me is your legal footing. Meeting ended without resolution. No apology, no threats, just silence. Rick didn't look at me again, but I could feel it. The balance was shifting. Still, walking out of that room, I wasn't calm. I was a boiling kettle in slacks, holding in a scream that could shatter glass. Because even with all my preparation, all my documentation, they could still twist it, still drown me in paperwork, still gut my business before it ever saw daylight. Stakes were now orbital. Either I was about to lose everything or Rick was. Friday evening at 6:12 p.m., the office was a graveyard, the kind of dead quiet that wraps around your spine and dares you to breathe too loud. Rick's department had just submitted their quarterly proposal to ClearMart, 42 slides of bloated jargon, a few recycled charts, and a budget line so padded it could double as a mattress ad. He strutted past my desk earlier, whistling like a man who'd already cashed a bonus he hadn't earned. "Hope you've got weekend plans, Steph," he said, mock cheerful. "Or maybe just time to work on your little Etsy thing." I didn't look up, because 5 minutes before that, I had submitted something of my own. Under the vendor alias Green Layer Systems Inc., registered quietly through a shell arm my attorney helped me establish 3 months prior. I submitted a 19-page proposal to ClearMart's procurement portal. No fluff, no fluffing, just raw metrics. 24% cost reduction over Rick's proposal, 38% faster fulfillment cycle, verified biodegradable inputs, 0 carbon delivery option. Partnered fleet, side-by-side timeline overlays with risk mitigation strategies, and a line at the bottom in bold. Founder-led, ethics first. Your customers will notice the difference. Wasn't just better, it was unignorable, and I knew it, which is what made it so much worse. Because after you push the boulder off the cliff, all you can do is wait to hear the crash. That night, I couldn't sleep, not even close. I tried everything: wine, white noise, reruns of Great British Bake Off, counting units sold on Shopify like they were sheep. Nothing worked. My brain was a hamster wheel on fire. What if they connect the dots? What if Rick goes nuclear? What if ClearMart ghosts both of us and I get blacklisted from the whole damn industry? What if my dad needs another surgery and I can't cover it without insurance? What if this whole year, every lunchless afternoon, every midnight invoice, every quiet act of defiance was just a fancy way to fall? But between the spirals, something else stirred. Hope. Ugly, stubborn, gasping hope. Hope that someone out there, someone with a budget and a backbone, look at my proposal and say, finally, this, yes. Hope that Rick would open his inbox Monday morning and feel the ground shift under his overpriced shoes. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't insane for believing that decency and efficiency weren't mutually exclusive. By 4:41 a.m., I was curled on the couch with a blanket over my face, vibrating with anticipation and dread. The city outside was silent. The inbox was too. In that liminal hour between night and day, I realized something that almost made me laugh. This was the most alive I'd ever felt. Terrified, exhausted, but undeniably alive. Somewhere deep inside the ClearMart headquarters, someone was reading both proposals, lining them up, comparing every word, weighing vision against vanity. I didn't know what Monday would bring, but I knew this: the tide had already turned. Monday morning, 8:03 a.m., I was already at my desk. Coffee untouched. Fingers locked together so tightly my knuckles looked like chalk. The office buzzed with its usual Monday chaos: printer jams, hangover groans, someone microwaving fish like they had a death wish. Then it happened. At 8:17 a.m., the first email dropped. Subject line: vendor contract realignment, immediate implementation. Sender: ClearMart procurement. By 8:19, Slack was a riot of confusion, threads lighting up with messages like, "What's going on?" And did anyone else just get kicked from the ClearMart dashboard? I stayed silent, watching, waiting. At 8:23, the official letter came in, addressed jointly to Rick, the executive team, and me. I opened it slowly, like unwrapping something radioactive. After a comprehensive evaluation of service metrics, fulfillment capability, and sustainability benchmarks, ClearMart will be discontinuing all active contracts with Denslow and Carr's fulfillment division. Effective immediately, we will be transitioning to Green Layer Inc. As our primary packaging solutions vendor. We prefer to work with visionaries, not tyrants. There it was. In Helvetica, no drama, no exclamation marks, just the clean, surgical truth of a kingdom falling. At 8:27, Rick came storming out of his glass corner like a weather system, face blotchy, tie crooked, mouth flapping open but no sound coming out. Someone from legal intercepted him halfway down the hall. A minute later, they both disappeared into the boardroom with 3 executives and a guy from finance who looked like he hadn't slept since 2006. Emergency meeting. Door closed. No one smiled. I didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't even breathe loud. At 8:39, my Green Layer inbox started to explode. Like to place an initial bulk order for Q4. Is there availability for a consult call this week? Our CEO is interested in a partnership proposal. Can you scale for international? Where the hell have you been? By 9:12 a.m., my LLC had more inquiries than it could field in 1 week. We were booked out 2 quarters. I texted Maya and Elise. It happened. Everything just cracked wide open. Maya replied with a string of rocket emojis. Elise sent back a voice memo that was mostly screaming. I could have walked over to Rick's office. Could have knocked. Could have printed the email, highlighted that beautiful line, "We prefer to work with visionaries, not tyrants," and taped it to his ergonomic chair. But I didn't. Instead, I printed the letter, framed it, took it home. That night, I hung it on the wall of my new home office, right above the desk where it all started, back when Green Layer was just a name in a notebook and a stubborn refusal to disappear quietly. I stared at it for a long time. No tears, no victory dance, just stillness, because the war was over, and I had built something that survived. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.